Hey everyone, Pugs here with 2 new reviews for y'all. Today I'm covering Dying for Pie and Imitation Krabs. And I can already tell this is going to be a pretty interesting one because one of these episodes is considered to be one of the all-time greats. So, fresh off reviewing one of the iconic episodes of the show and straight into reviewing another, I guess. As always, just want to extend a quick thank you to everyone who's watching, liking, commenting. Y'all know the drill by now, but I say it every time. And with all of that said, let's just get right into it. Dying for Pie is an episode that's known to most as simply iconic. And I'm inclined to agree with that assessment. I mean, come on. It's one of the most well-known episodes of the show, and for good reason. And I know that there's plenty of people, just casually on Twitter, even on the forum, who have Dying for Pie as their favorite episode. Now, spoiler alert, this episode is not my favorite of season 2. Not anywhere close. But, it's still a good, solid episode. And, let's talk about it. So put your pitchforks away. So, just like some of the last few episodes, Dying for Pie is yet again one of those episodes with 2 distinct sections. But the sections, transition so smoothly that I hardly even need to mention this. So that'll be the bulk of my analysis on that. The episode starts off pretty well with Squidward's dream, which had a nicely drawn background, actually, if I do say so myself, leading to a hint for what the episode's plot might be, which is, SpongeBob annoying Squidward in some capacity, plus the Krusty Krab being involved. As we transition over to the Krusty Krab portion of this section, we get a cool visual gag of SpongeBob's body cleaning the window of the restaurant as he follows Squidward with a goofy and endearing grin on his face. I think that's the best word to describe SpongeBob in this episode, endearing. The little guy is just so adorable and earnest throughout the entire episode, and he's really at his best here. And I can't decide if I like it better for SpongeBob to have been trolling with the sweater of tears thing or not. On one hand, Troll Bob is so funny to me and is just great. On the other hand, I love seeing the little square dude with, just be super earnest and genuine. So basically, no matter the interpretation, it's a win-win. In general, this episode is just hilarious. I mean, firstly, it's got some pretty great visual gags like the eyelashes bit or the sweater of tears or later in the episode with the bubble bombs or, even the hysterically dark imagined scene of SpongeBob exploding into a bunch of little pieces. The montage of SpongeBob and Squidward is simultaneously hilarious and wholesome, so that was another really positive point for me. And Squidward resolving to give SpongeBob the best last day of his life is also just hilarious, and how he starts going just a wee bit insane there. And Mr. Krabs just makes it even funnier, but with his little watch out for Squidward comment. And then the pie being a bomb in the first place is just so delightfully random, and I love it. The fact that these pirates just had these pie bombs and were hauling them onto their ship right outside the Krusty Krab is just the right amount of absurd and unexplained nonsense that I adore. Truly, this episode knows the random assignment. And it also knows the random explosion assignment, which, as we all know, is one of my favorite kinds of gags. Okay, from the random explosions at the beginning of the episode to the very end bit with the pie exploding on Squidward's face, I love it. Another strength of Dying for Pie is that it hits perfectly on emotion and drama. The amazingly dramatic stakes of SpongeBob exploding in the first explosion that would, actually mean anything in the show is a great plot driver. And I love how we get such a wholesome little montage of Squidward and SpongeBob hanging out. It's just so heartwarming to see how Squidward is determined to give this little guy the best last day he can, which only goes to show that underneath everything, Squidward really does care for SpongeBob. We saw it in Pizza Delivery, we see it here. And then, of course, we have the last bit of this episode, watching the sunset. Once again, we get a great balance of humor and drama from this show, and it leans more and more into the dramatics as the sun goes down, until eventually Squidward genuinely starts crying. Of course, this is SpongeBob. The drama doesn't last, because we get the humorous reveal that SpongeBob is alive, making bomb bubbles for no reason, in another great example of absurdity, and this show's famous disdain for physics. And, I also get my Gary crumbs with the whole, Gary, you're gonna eat your dessert bit. And of course, I get plenty of gorgeous backgrounds in this episode. I couldn't, not mention that. I have a whole picture up here and everything. Of course I have to say that. And yeah, I truly have no qualms with this episode. It's a great character-driven episode in terms of building up, especially Squidward's character, and it's a masterful example of balancing drama and comedy. I had this episode in my great tier before, though I'm not really sure why. I find it to be pretty funny, even if not every joke makes me laugh out loud, and it just has really good and tight writing throughout. Even if I don't find it to be one of the greatest of all time, I can still recognize the brilliance of Dying for Pi. And that's why this episode is being put in my amazing tier, coming in with a score of 9 out of 10. Imitation Krabs is also one of the better-known episodes of SpongeBob SquarePants, and part of me wonders if that is because of its sister episode, Dying for Pi. That's not to say that this episode doesn't stand on its own, because it is a good episode, but I wouldn't really call it as good as its sister, And, I'm just going to come right out and say it, first off. So, the first few minutes of this episode are easily the best and funniest parts of it, full stop. This entire opening bit gets me laughing, every single time. When Plankton gets more and more enthusiastic, only for SpongeBob to skillfully recite the Krusty Krab employee handbook while sounding like a sweepstakes disclaimer. That's legitimately, so funny to me. And then, even better, we have one of my favorite moments in, the entire show. The whole, Plankton Krabs SpongeBob exchange. I'm not sure what it is about that exchange that gets me rolling every time, but it does. And I think SpongeBob's earnest little smile and voice acting really sells the scene, undercutting the tension with great humor. And I love how the scene is improved upon in a later episode, Enemy-in-Law, but that's besides the point. So anyway, once Mr. Krabs throws Plankton out of the restaurant, that's when the episode gets, I won't say worse, but less excellent for me. And I think my main problem with this episode is that everything is repetitive and takes too long. The banter between Mr. Krabs, SpongeBob, and Squidward is fun, if a slight come down from the previous amazing banter. And once Squidward enters the storage room, things get a bit dull. I do like that Squidward's able to see, through Plankton immediately, though. I think that's very in character for him. And it also makes me realize that especially early on, Squidward wasn't really very involved in episodes that Plankton was involved in. I also like the whole day off bit, where Mr. Krabs is upset that Squidward took the day off, but those two things are really the only highlight of this part of the episode. And moving on, once Plankton gets Mr. Krabs out of the way, we get an enjoyable montage of SpongeBob making Plankton, jump through all these hoops for him, and, for him and SpongeBob to be able to discuss the formula. And yeah, the montage is enjoyable, but watching it, I feel passive enjoyment rather than active enjoyment, which is only a step up from feeling bored, or almost bored at least. I just don't really find much of the rest of the episode to be very funny. And another thing I don't really like in this episode is SpongeBob's characterization. We already know that SpongeBob's gullible and not very smart, or really he's more naive than anything, but he clearly loves his job and is devoted to it. That's why he knows the whole handbook by heart. So, we see that clearly in this episode, with the beginning joke and in the interrogation scene with Mr. Krabs and Plankton. So why, then, is SpongeBob completely unable to tell his boss apart from an imposter? This episode truly only works when we consider an episode like Crabborg existing, which, is the superior robot crabs episode, by the way. But anyway, that issue is just so glaring for me that it kind of takes me out of the episode every time. And I know that SpongeBob's stupidity is fluid, but this is really pushing it for me, especially since Squidward sees through Plankton's scheme right away. This unbelievable stupidity shown by SpongeBob also makes the interrogation scene and its result extremely frustrating for me. This episode would have been far more gratifying if SpongeBob had figured out Plankton's scheme on his own too, not just, accidentally causing Plankton's disguise to explode, even if, I do love a random explosion. And, that's pretty much all I've got to say about Imitation Krabs. There's not too much to talk about here. I adore the beginning. I find it to be decently entertaining throughout. But I have a huge issue with the characterization driving the plot. I wouldn't put this episode any lower than my good tier, though, because I think it's better than okay, as it never quite reaches the level of boring, even at its dullest points. Not to mention, those first few minutes are, again, excellent and kind of save the episode from falling that low. And although I do have a huge issue with SpongeBob's characterization, I can ignore it sometimes, sometimes being the key word there. So that's why this episode is going in my good tier, coming in with a score of 7.2 out of 10. As always, I just wanted to end off this review with some closing thoughts of mine. So I've been covering some really heavy hitters lately with these season 2 reviews. Like Dying for Pie is one of the most famous and recognizable episodes of this show. And Imitation Krabs, it's no slouch either. Like, I wouldn't call any season 2 episode exactly forgettable, but y'all know what I mean. It just feels like I'm covering episodes that people actually have like some really strong opinions about. And I guess that reflects where I'm at in my written reviews too, because now I'm reviewing season 6 in those, and there's some very notorious episodes in that season. Honestly, the entire season's kind of notorious, but so it's kind of fun to sometimes go against the grain. I mean, I haven't really gone against the grain too much yet, but sometimes. And yeah, that's all I really have to say for these closing thoughts and for this review. So I'll go ahead and end things here, and I will see you guys next time.